you want to hone some new skills this spring, check out Learning with Experts, the global classroom community that brings people together to learn from the best in the business. Their range of courses covers everything from food and drink to photography and gardening. So why not become an accredited garden designer and learn with world-renowned experts including influential Dutch garden designer Piet Oudolf and multi-award-winning British designer Tom Stewart Smith? Or take a course on herb gardening, natural beekeeping or growing veg. You can start whenever it suits and you get to meet other gardening enthusiasts in the sociable online classroom. Visit learningwithexperts.com/on-the-ledge now for 10% off your first course. That's learningwithexperts.com/on-the-ledge. Learning with Experts, online learning that's guaranteed to lift the spirits. Open your stomata and ready your roots for another episode of Planty Podcast Extraordinaire on the Ledge. I'm your filthy fingernailed host, Jane Perrone, here to guide you through the jungle that is the world of houseplants. And in this week's show, I take a trip to the wonderful county of Hertfordshire to meet Sarah Gerrard-Jones, aka the Plant Rescuer. And I answer a question about an avocado that just doesn't want to be bushy. A reminder right at the top of the episode that there will be no episode next week. That's June the 4th because I'm taking a break for half term when my children are on leave from school. I will be back on Friday, June the 11th. If you are in the Leicestershire area of the UK on May the 31st, this coming Monday, then do check out the Leaf Houseplant Festival where I'll be doing a houseplant clinic at 3 o'clock on the Monday. The show is also on the 30th of May, the Sunday, and I'll put all the details in the show notes, including a discount code for booking tickets. Thank you to Root and Rose in the US, T-Boy63 in the UK, and a Lady Eleanor Glanville. I thought she was a lepidopterist from the last century, but perhaps it's one of her descendants. Anyway, Lady Eleanor Glanville left a review and is from the UK. So thanks to all three of you. All of those lovely words just warmed me old cockles. So thank you so much. And also thanks need to be given to Tony and Mackenzie, who became legends, and Mary, who became a crazy plant person, joining the more than 300 people who've become Patreon subscribers with their hard-earned cash. Find out more in the show notes. There you'll also find info for making a one-off donation via PayPal or ko-fi.com. This week's guest, Sarah Gerrard-Jones, and I have an awful lot in common. We're both in our 40s, we both own beddy whippets, we both live in houses with north-facing plant rooms, and we live less than an hour's drive away from each other. But Sarah is known as the Plant Rescuer because she's got a very strong urge to rescue the plants that other people would put in the bin and breathe new life into them via a bit of good old-fashioned TLC. In my very first opportunity to leave the On The Ledge studio this year, I mean, I have been out of it, but for a work trip, I visited Sarah's house in St Albans in Hertfordshire, and we sat down for a chat. And it went the way it usually does when I'm really enthusiastic about a guest. And that is that I basically just forgot to start the interview proper. So that's why it starts a bit randomly. I have to point out that at this point, we'd already spent at least half an hour talking about dogs. So yes, she's got a lovely Betty Whippet and 2 Devon Rex cats, which you can see pictures of on her Instagram, which is quite simply The Plant Rescuer. So I hope you enjoy this chat. Imagine you're sitting round the kitchen table with us chatting about plants. What could be better? I'm just looking at that. We need to talk about... There's so many things we need to talk about.
It's so nice to meet you.
It's nice to be in your lovely home, and I feel like I've been here before. Because actually,
I feel like we're soul sisters.
Yeah, I feel like we've been separated at birth because actually I feel like I've been here before. I've seen so many of these plants on Instagram.
Right.
And followed your rescue stories.
Oh, thank you.
It's very, very exciting that we can finally do this.
It's so exciting because, of course, we've been kept apart by COVID, haven't we?
I know, yes. We were planning to do this some time ago, and now we're actually getting round to it now that hopefully things are on the mend. Have your plants been a nice little distraction during this past year?
Absolutely, but I don't know how they're going to cope when life returns to normal and they don't get all this TLC all the time. She's made me realise how much work they take.
Yeah.
When you've got the time to spend with them, I can spend literally all day.
Exactly, and I think
I wonder how I do anything else.
I think this is a message we need to get out there that it's not necessary for everybody to have 200 plants. Sometimes
totally
agree. How much work's involved in rescuing a plant. Let's just talk about that side of things first. How did that all begin? How did you get into rescuing plants? Is it a lifelong thing, or is it something that's
what? It sounds so strange to say it, but I feel like it really chose me. Does that sound weird?
No.
I was going out to buy paint about 5 years ago, local DIY store. I won't mention any names.
It's fine, you can mention names, it's fine.
Name and shame, home base.
Yeah.
And while I was there looking for paint, I noticed there was somebody binning the orchids that have stopped flowering. And it just struck me that was really sad that they were being binned mid their life cycle just because they didn't look perfect anymore and weren't flowering anymore. So of course that if you keep an orchid it can rebloom. It was just really sad to see them just being discarded, chucked away. So I went over and I said, could I have those? And I literally came home from home base with 20 orchids in my boot, no paint, I think. But anyway, I nurtured them, I read up about them, I found out what I could do to make them bloom again, and when they did, it was just really rewarding. And since that point, this was going back 5 years now, I'm obsessed with trying to find plants before they're binned. I find it's just a really, it's shameful. It's like an awful reflection on humans that, we discard everything. We can't be bothered to fix anything. We want now. We want, if something's broken, it just is, that's it, done. But I think with plants, there is so much to be learnt and so much fun to be had from experimenting, and it feels like it's my vocation in life to do this.
And so you've got this huge following on Instagram of people who are...
I surprised that as well. Yeah, that's crazy.
That's really great in that you're able to sort of spread that message to lots of people who are collecting plants, because, as in the past year or so, things have exploded in the houseplant world, which is a great thing. But also I wonder whether it's actually meaning that the problem's got worse, in that there are lots of plants that are not being sold and therefore going in the bin.
Well, absolutely, I totally agree. Yeah, I think that, especially with people ordering online, a plant arrives, it's got a broken leaf, it's been knocked about, it's got a bent stem or one brown leaf, and people aren't willing to accept that that's natural, and they'll be calling up wherever they got the plant from and complaining about it. Well, that only serves to have more plants chucked away, because the sellers, they won't risk sending out a plant that's got anything wrong with it because they know there'll be repercussions. So actually they just get binned before they even, see the light of day, so to speak, which is so wasteful. It's just like the wonky veg in the supermarkets, right? You know, we can agree that is a really awful practice that we throw away, you know, perfectly good food just because it doesn't look, you know, straight or whatever, or how, you know, what we imagine a perfect piece of fruit to look like. It just gets chucked away. It's the same as plants. And why do we allow that? You know, it's just.
Do you think it's also that people have got so disconnected from what plants actually look like in the wild? Like whenever I go, whenever
absolutely.
I'm researching a particular plant, I'll go and look, and you know, there's various places you can look for these images of what these plants look like in habitat, and inevitably they look. You know, they're beaten up. They've got bits taken off them. Their leaves aren't perfect, and yet we expect our houseplants to be absolutely pristine and not to have any damage to their leaves. I think that's a really important thing for us to try to do, is to educate people, and this is what you're doing, is educating people about what the best ways are to actually get these plants back to good health.
Well, and also just to accept that this is what plants look like.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily you're doing something wrong, it's just this is a natural life cycle of a plant. It does discard its leaves, you know, once it's used them, and it's just learning to embrace that and appreciate that is part of nature. And I'm really grateful to have the platform I do to spread that word.
Yeah. And it's a great message. And we're here in your open plan kitchen with skylights above, loads of wonderful hanging plants above us. And I don't know where to start because there's so many lovely things here. You've got tough things up here that probably don't need that much water, like the ripsalis and things. What's your regime for these plants that are hanging below these skylights?
Yeah, well, I do stand on the chair and the table, get up there. But yeah, I tend to, you know, plants speak to you. They don't speak like we speak, but they speak to you in what they're trying to convey through their leaf, the way something's changed. So I would just keep a really, you know, close eye on what's going on. And you just become in tune with your plants, don't you? Like I have loads, but they have their own personalities, and I sort of know when something needs something, you know, when somebody needs watering, and it's just a closeness with your plants. Engaging all your senses is really important. It's why I don't use things like moisture meters.
Yeah.
You know, use your finger.
Yeah.
You know, use your senses, look at it and see. That's the way you'll learn how to care for your plants properly, intuitively, by looking and just observing any changes. And so these ones, I've got a step ladder, and maybe they're all kind of a similar need up here, I think. So at the moment I'll probably water them about once a week. Yeah. There's nothing I don't put anything up there that's really thirsty, because the likelihood is it's going to wilt.
Yes. And do you this is north facing here, so they're getting lots of light but not direct sunlight.
That's it. Yeah, they're really very happy in here, especially the ones that hang underneath the skylight. They're going to explode if we ever get some sun.
Yes, it's been
poor, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has been a poor spring here in the UK, and that has definitely had an impact.
Definitely.
The other thing we must talk about are your rescue cacti. And you were saying earlier before we started recording that you've got a bit of an obsession with getting these big fellows and rescuing
particularly
them.
this type as well. I don't know what it is about them. I just find them extraordinary.
I guess are they Clyster cactus or
Straussy, is it?
Yeah,
I think so.
So the old man, the cactus, or various other names they've got. But I mean, there must be. You've got ones there that have got multiple stems, several feet tall. They must be a good 10, 20 years old at least.
At least. I mean, I think this one's probably about 25. I suspect. Yeah, I just can't help myself. And even though I really shouldn't, because I don't have the ideal house for cacti, and I don't have the room. So I think that's also an important thing to talk about with, you know, people filling their houses with plants. Is really, you should look at what you can grow in your house, and that will lead to success. Whereas if you haven't got the right kind of light and you go and buy yourself a cactus, a big cactus like this, the likelihood is it's not going to do that great if you can't provide it with bright light. So another reason I'm thinking of having a bit of a purge. There's certain plants over here, for example my alocasia over here, that's really unhappy.
Oh yeah.
And that's because I don't have bright light right now.
Yeah.
That's the problem with our weather, isn't it?
Yeah, it is very variable, and you can have grow lights, but the amount of grow lights you would need,
Well, exactly.
unless you've got a very small collection,
and also the energy that takes as well.
Yeah, you can spotlight a few plants,
Yeah.
but it's just trying to balance it out. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's wonderful to be able to rescue these venerable cacti, which I think often come from people who've had them for years and they're too elderly to look after them. I think that's oftentimes the case.
Yeah.
But, that's a wonderful thing to be able to keep them going.
Well, I dread to think what would have happened to the one I recently got, the big, 6-7 foot one there. When I went to pick it up, I could tell that had come from an elderly person's home. And I just dread to think, if that had gone to these house clearance people, what would have become of this beautiful cactus that had been loved and nurtured by somebody all their lives? I dread to think.
I think you're probably a bit like me in that you rock up to pick up one of these plants and you're on your own. You're like,
yes.
I'm just going to figure it out as I go along.
It was exactly that. I had a mild panic on the way, going, what if I can't lift it up? But, I just. I'm like the Hulk. I'm small, but when it comes to plants, I will lift anything.
I know exactly
if it
what you're
means
saying.
I can take it home. Yeah, because my husband normally, I'll kind of dupe him into going somewhere,
right?
With the idea that I know there's a plant I really want to pick up. We drove. I was like, I saw this one, and we just joined the National Trust.
Right.
We hadn't been to one yet. And I was like desperately looking for one. And I was like, oh, should we go to today? And he was like, sure, it's quite far. I was like, yeah, I think we should go. And I was like, when I was there, I was like, can we just drive an extra hour? And can we pick up a cactus? And we're already in the car, so you couldn't say
there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I mean, this is the thing.
Yeah.
It does, the lengths that we go to are quite extreme. My husband does get annoyed sometimes when he's brushing past things or things get knocked down.
Yeah.
I mean, we're both sharing an office now, and it's awful because literally I've got some glass shelves with loads of plants on it, and then there's like an area underneath which is just full of propagating crap, and he's just tripping over things.
It's the same in this house.
It's terrible.
And in fact, my poor dad, he came to stay and got attacked in the shower by a cactus. And I did feel like, maybe this is too much now. And I often think, do you know what? That plant could have a better life somewhere else.
And I think that's a great thing to cling on to, in that if you've got a network of people that where you can give plants away and they're going to be happy.
Well, I've got you now.
Oh, well, yeah, exactly.
You're not leaving without a few.
God. Okay, well that's, I mean,
so,
I won't say no. I will not say no to a cutting
or two. I know
you're
quite partial to a ripsalis, and we'll have a look at that.
That ripsalis are, I think, my new obsession. And
I would give you one of these. I think these are dragon fruit cactus.
Oh, Hylocereus, yeah.
And I don't want to...
No, don't give me any thrips, please.
No,
I know,
Actually, but do you have a rabbit's foot fern?
Well, you know what? I was looking at that, and I don't. I purged my ferns a couple of years ago because I had terrible scab, but I've never had the rabbit's foot fern. And I just purged ferns because I thought, I know how to grow ferns, but I just don't have enough interest in them to give them that level of care that I need. Actually, since then, I think if I was going to have another fern, or like a more high maintenance fern, I think I would do it slightly differently in terms of I'd have it on a self-watering system.
That's the key.
And make it easier for myself. But on the other hand, I think I'm maturing as a plant parent finally, in that I'm saying I focus on particular genera and I don't have to have every plant. Yeah. But I do love those rabbit foot ferns.
Well, you'll get on really well with the rabbit foot because
it's just that rhizome.
It's up there, and I was saying the plants up there, they literally kind of look after themselves, and that's up there. So that tells you how easy it is to care for. It's not like your maidenhair or whatever. Yeah. But going back to ferns and the self-watering pots, that is the key to keeping them. Bright light, self-watering pot, Bob's your uncle. You can have ferns.
The other things I've got in self-watering pots are the fishbone cactus, Epiphyllum angulica, and that is growing like a weed in a self-watering pot.
Well, funny enough, I've got one outside. It's been so wet. It's doing really well.
Yeah, they do like quite a lot of moisture. And also my Easter cactus, I've just switched it over actually, but it is in a china pot filled with laca in the bottom, wet, and then a nylon wick going up into the bottom of a plastic pot.
And that's
a bit like this
really happy. Yeah, it's sort of similar to that setup there where I've just described this. So this is a lovely bird's nest fern. Now these, I'm so nostalgic about these because I remember growing them as a child, but I love this method. So simple. Plastic bottle, cut in half, turned upside down, the plant in the top half, the mouth end with the entry pointing down, and then you've got the water being sucked up through a wick, which is...
That's how
perfect.
Don't throw your plastic bottles in landfill.
Yeah,
recycle them. Just repurpose them into something.
I think it's the Plant Daddy podcast that does the same, but with glass bottles.
And now let's crack on with question of the week, which comes from Cara and concerns an avocado. And Cara's email carried the subject line, avocado plant refuses to branch. Yes, it's one of those avocado plants that probably millions of people sprouted in the last year, but this one is reaching for the sky with no intention of bushing out at all. Cara has done a big chop and the plant produced a side shoot and then just went on growing up and up and up. So Cara wants to know whether to chop it again. The plan is to make it shorter and bushier. What can she do? Well, I think every plant responds differently to pruning. Sometimes you'll find that one chop is enough to make an avocado really put out loads of side shoots and become much more bushy, but some just seem to want to go skywards. There's no harm in making another chop, Cara. I reckon that you could chop the new growth back to the lowest node, that's the point where the leaf meets the stem, and not do any harm, certainly. The only thing is you might end up with a plant that looks rather strange if it's just going to keep on going up, but it will branch eventually. But looking at the plant, it really only has one leaf on it so far. And the danger is that you're going to chop it and take off that only source of photosynthetic power. So what I would do, Cara, is leave it for the moment. Let those leaves develop. I think I can see on the stem that there are some leaf buds developing. I would let those leaves develop. For a start, that will make the plant look more bushy just by adding to the foliage. It will also give the chance to just build up its reserves and also put some roots down in what looks to be quite a large pot for it. So yeah, I would just leave it for the moment if you can bear it. Maybe put it outside for the summer if you have the opportunity to do so, and have another look at it in a couple of months' time. You don't want to leave it too long to prune it, because you don't want to be pruning it just as the plant will be possibly going into a rest period in the autumn and winter. That said, I wouldn't do it now. Let those leaves mature, let the plant develop a bit more. If you chop it too soon, then you're just kind of stalling the plant's engine before it's had a proper chance to get going. I always recommend with avocado plants that you start a few off. That allows you to have a number of different plants and see which ones look best, because as I say, every avocado plant looks different, responds differently to pruning, and I think sometimes it's down to the kind of avocado that you are planting, because obviously there's different cultivars that are used for avocado farming. So I would probably start off a couple more avocados, and of course you can listen back to my avocado episode where I describe the plastic bag technique for shooting. If you didn't use that before, do give it a go. I'll stick a link to that in the show notes. So I'd get a few more going, and then A, you'll have a forest of avocados. B, you'll then be able to select the very finest specimen to keep and maybe give away the others. I do love growing things from kitchen scraps, and it's so much fun. But the best thing about it is you can just try lots of different stuff and see what works. So with the new avocados, you might end up chopping some, leaving others, and seeing what looks best. The world is your oyster, or possibly your papaya, I don't know. I hope that helps, Cara. And if anyone else has a question for On The Ledge, I would be delighted to help. Drop a line to ontheledgepodcast@gmail.com. Include a picture. Lots of people end up contacting me via my contact page on my website, which is fine, but it just does mean that you can't put a picture in there. So just memorize or write down that email address, ontheledgepodcast@gmail.com. And then you can put a load of pictures in there so I can really see what's going on. And now let's head back to Hertfordshire for more of my chat with Sarah Gerrard-Jones.
I move my plants around constantly. Do you find this as well?
I can spend an entire day moving them around, but I love it. It's therapeutic. That's my hobby. Yeah, I mean, I don't tend to do very much out in the garden, as you can see. It's just lawn, but I indoor garden, and that's my thing. It
is so fun, and you've got so many lovely specimens here. I mean, I'm loving your Ripsalis of various kinds. The giant cacti. I can never remember what the name of that aroid is. That's Philodendron Florida Ghost.
Well, it's not
or Florida
ghost,
something.
Just
Florida.
Just Florida, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not
the ghost is the variegated one.
But that was 80% of these plants were rescues. That was rescued from a wholesaler. I found it literally behind the shelves, and it completely flopped down. It's a large plant. It was probably 6 foot tall. And it had grown too big for its supporting pole. It all flopped over. It looked so sad. So I brought that home. I actually gave it quite a chop back, because that's one of the things I tend to do with a plant that's not looking great. I tend to just go for the chop quite quickly because I think it reinvigorates it. So that's busy recovering over there. But this here, the bird of paradise.
You have chopped that?
That was brought to me... Instagram is brilliant for so many things, and there's a lot of plant companies that contact me now if they've got plants that are so beautiful, they don't want to throw them away. They'll contact me and say, hey, do you want this? So this arrived one day with 7 foot Apuntia.
Okay.
So my husband was like, what are you doing? Anyway, this arrived and it was really severely, I think it had gotten really cold and it was also quite wet. So I just chopped it, thinking we were going to have summer or spring.
Yeah, you thought it was going to shoot.
We've had literally the worst weather, so it's just sat there. But it's still green, so I have hope.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a sort of a 2 foot, 3 foot stump there. I think it probably will.
It needs to be outside in some warm sun.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. But my bird of paradise is not thanking me right now.
Well, I think there's good potential.
There's hope, right?
I mean, it's got a huge, root system there, which hopefully has got enough energy to
do something.
Poke out some new
I have hope.
Growth.
Yeah. But come on, son.
The rain last night was not fun. I mean, the other thing we should say, we haven't mentioned your dog yet, who is now doing what my dog does, which is lying on the sofa. But you do have a baby whippet, another wolfie. And it's very. I mean, that's the only reason why I came, really. I'm just kidding, but it is lovely to have
parallel lives. I mean,
I know
seriously.
It's a bit spooky, minus the cats. It is a bit spooky.
And obviously both books as well. No?
Yes. Now tell me about your book.
Well, it's not going to be out until next year.
Do you have is that an actual title or a working title?
Well, I think it's an actual title.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the book Your Houseplants Want You to Buy.
Oh, that's a good. That's a very good title. Did you come up with that, or was that?
I did come up with that.
Yes.
But basically, it's kind of speaking to you from the plant's point of view and what they want from this arrangement. Yeah. It's kind of like plant activism, and it's also about just being a bit more mindful about being a plant grower. We tend to think, our plants are green, or we're so eco-friendly because we've got all these plants, but actually the industry itself is not completely without its faults, and particularly waste, throwing things away, throwing plants away, throwing pots away, those plastic pots. When plants get thrown away, they don't save those pots. Yeah. So it's just adding to this plastic disaster that we're facing. So the book is just about don't give up on your plants. Don't turn a blind eye to the plants that are, suffering on the shelves. Instead of going for the perfect one, maybe go for the one that's, a bit thirsty, because that's easy to rectify, isn't it? I'm
totally with you, and that's the first place I go in the garden centre. It's the bargain.
Well, we love a bargain.
Yeah, and like looking at all the bedraggled plants and knowing that outside or inside, well, actually that will grow back from a rhizome or whatever. That's a very satisfying thing to think that you can revive something. Yeah, perfect. See, I don't buy that many perfect plants. I can't think of the last time I bought a perfect plant from a garden centre, because it's almost more of a challenge, actually, because what then happens is you've got this perfect plant and it comes home to you, and then it has to have this sort of rather gnarly process of adaptation to your conditions. And it's not because I'm not giving it the right care, it's just because it's been in a humid greenhouse with perfect light. And so that I find that less satisfying as a process than getting a cutting or reviving a plant to make it look better.
I've never thought about it before, but that's completely right. So maybe part of the reason I'm doing this is because when I bring a sad plant home, it's, 9 times out of 10 it's going to look better, but actually, when you bring a perfect one home, 9 times out of 10 it's going to look worse.
The only way is up. If it's looking terrible, then you can improve it.
I also talk about what a great teacher a plant can be if it's unhealthy. You wouldn't necessarily chop down a perfect plant to see if it regrows, but I don't have that fear with the ones that literally it's life or death here. Well, I may as well try. And then you learn something new and you think, oh, well, I can use that, in something else. So, it's a great teacher, basically. I've learned everything from rescuing plants just by experimenting.
You've got nothing to lose, really, haven't you? Because if it's going to die anyway, you may as well try this technique that you never tried before, because it could be successful, and if it is, then you've learned something new.
It's so rewarding.
Yeah.
It's an addictive feeling, and why I have so many plants, because I can't stop myself.
But
it's like
you
going
do
to the gym or something, it's the endorphins that you get from...
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
But do you find now that you are kind of, when you do, you're happy to hand plants on to somebody else to sort of streamline your collection and also pass on the joy to somebody else?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I just want to pass all the ones on that have made it, and and I don't want to fill my house with too many anymore. I feel like the stars in here get lost, and I want to see the stars in here, like the beautiful old cactuses. They feel like they should be centre stage, but they're just lost amongst. I don't want to stop rescuing though, but I will be more targeted, I think, in what I rescue.
And what's the process? So where are you getting these plants from? You're going into the garden centre and looking at the bargain rack, but also are you scout? Because people say, I found this on the side of the road, and I'm thinking, why don't I ever find plants on the side of the road?
That's only happened once in 5 years.
Where are you looking to? Where do you get these rescued plants from? Do they come to you now?
Well, actually, can you see this olive tree? This came yesterday from a follower.
Okay.
I mean, I don't tend to do outside plants. I'm just really interested in the house plants. But I have an olive tree that I literally stuck in the ground that I rescued from an office, I don't know how many years ago. I just stuck it in the ground, and it's taller than the extension now. So I said to her, sure, drop your stick of an olive tree and I'll see what I can do. But a lot of the rescues I look for on, we've talked about this before, about Facebook Marketplace and Gumtree and eBay are great places to look for the weird and wonderful and the abused. But mainly I will go to DIY shops, supermarkets, garden centres, all those kind of places.
Yeah. But what about when things go wrong? You, like all of us, you have problems with pests. What's your approach to dealing with when things go horribly wrong?
Well, pests, they used to really stress me out, and I used to get so annoyed. I think, I've done so well, rescuing this plant, and now it's got, whatever, mealybugs. I mean, what a pain. But I've learned that it's nature. These pests, you have plants in your garden, you're going to get slugs. You have house plants, you're going to get these pests, and I don't hit them with chemicals. I don't think that's the right approach for me personally. And I've been loving the beneficial insects.
Yes,
I've been loving that
brilliant.
journey. I mean, let's be honest, it's not 100% successful all of the time, but it's fascinating. And it's like having an ecosystem inside. And I have no problem with releasing mites all over my house, because if you think about it, your house is not this sterile environment. It's full of spiders and whatever else.
Yeah, there's probably like 50 species of mites in your house already. Some of them on your face.
Honestly, I really don't understand people saying, I don't like the idea of mites. No, so I no longer stress myself out about bugs, because it's part of growing plants indoors. You're going to get them. So why bother stressing? You can. I I go for the option of keeping them under control rather than eradication.
So what's your process? You get a plant that you've rescued, you bring it home. What's your kind of step-by-step way to assess a new plant?
I like to think it's like a plant Cluedo. This is the game I play. And if you go to the garden centre, normally it's very obvious what the problem is. You can see that it's not had any light, or the soil is like, sawdust, it's just disintegrating, so it's very dry. But it's just narrowing down what you think has caused the problem. It's more difficult when there's a lot of yellow leaves, because then you have to disturb the roots and find out if they're rotting. But most of the time it's superficial what's gone wrong. Like I say, it just needs watering, or there's some damaged leaves. So it's usually quite a simple thing to rectify. I realised that early on, that actually just giving a plant light can solve so many of its problems. And this is why I think so many people struggle and have ailing plants, because they fail to give it the light it needs. And if it doesn't have the light it needs, it's going to start getting these ailments. I don't call it overwatering, it's more like an underlit plant. You're not giving it the appropriate amount of light to use the water that you're giving it, so therefore it's going to start suffering. So I found that it was really simple adjustments that would help it recover. Like, I used to feel a little bit like a fraud, because I'd show this plant on Instagram that looked awful, and all I would do would be give it a drink, put it on my windowsill, and within a month or so it looked amazing. So it's not rocket science. And why I think everybody should give it a go, because a lot of these problems are so easy to rectify, and it saves that plant from being chucked away.
And if you can find that light space to put a plant, then hopefully all will be good. Yeah. We also should mention, though, that I think a lot of people fall into the trap, and I've certainly fallen into this trap of thinking that a cactus that's been in a very dark place can be suddenly put in a bright sunlight, and that obviously is another.
As well. Yeah. We've both learned the hard way.
Yeah, I've learned the hard way with that very much, and that is devastating. So the challenges are numerous, but I mean, it's wonderful that you've got this brilliant collection, and that it's given you this whole new life and a book. I mean, how awesome is that?
That is incredible. And who would have thought that Instagram could lead to somewhere like that? I mean, becoming an author, I mean, it's fabulous. We go on about how much we dislike social media, but actually for me it's been just the most positive thing. And I generally think people on there are pretty nice. I've never had haters. I don't know about you, but
no,
I generally think it's quite a nice place to be, and I'm very grateful for my platform.
Well, I'm really glad to have had the chance to come and see your collection. What I love, and what people have often said to me, aren't you annoyed that there's all these, young people growing plants? What are you talking about? Like, of course not. The more people are growing plants, the better, because that means they have cuttings that I can take.
And you must go and take the cuttings.
That wasn't a cue, but actually, and again,
great.
that's a wonderful community and support network,
and even really young kids. My friends have got really young kids who are into plants, which I just think so lovely. Like I'm going to be doing like a mini terrarium workshop for my friends' kids soon, and I just think that's so lovely.
Yeah, it's a fantastic thing. I mean, we all know, we knew this already, we still know it, but it's a good thing to emphasise that plant people are lovely, and it's a wonderful thing that's brought so much joy to all our lives. So I'm very glad to have finally met you, Sarah.
Likewise.
Do go and check out the show notes and also Sarah's Instagram, The Plant Rescuer, for some images of the plants we talk about and of Sarah's beautiful home. That is all for this week's show. I do hope you have a week that surpasses your expectations. And if you're going to be at the Houseplant Festival on Monday, do come and say hi. I will have some On the Ledge stickers with me. Bye! Music you heard in this episode was Roll Jordan Roll by the Joy Drops, The Road We Used to Travel When We Were Young by Kumiku, and I Snost, I Lost by Dr. Turtle. The ad music was Dill Pickles by the Heftone Banjo Orchestra. All tracks are licensed under Creative Commons. Visit the show notes for details.